Creepypastas are anonymous internet stories that spread across forums and social media, captivating readers with their spine-chilling narratives. One of the most widely circulated entries, and often considered the first true creepypasta, is Ted the Caver, which began as an Angel Fire website in 2001. It is presented as the online diary of Ted, who excavates an unexplored cave with his friends. As he delves deeper into the passage, the entries become increasingly unsettling. Join us as we relive this spine-chilling entry that has captivated and terrified readers for years. Ted and his friend B decided to go on a caving trip in December of 2000. They discovered a small hole in this mystery cave they were exploring. The hole had a cool wind coming from it, and this strange fact drew them to find out more about the hole. As Ted said, there is a saying among cavers, "If it blows, it goes," meaning if a passage has a good flow of air, it is probably worth investigating. Looking through the hole, Ted discovered that further in, the passage opened up after about 10 feet of crawl space. The hole was too small to fit a whole human body, so the two men set about opening it up. While down there at the hole, the men began to hear a strange howling sound from it and a bit of rumbling too. Ted, at the time, dismissed the rumbling sound as traffic from the freeway nearby. Ted and B left the site, but soon returned with the proper equipment for breaking up the hole. Using a drill, bullpen, and small sledgehammer, they took turns breaking up the area around the hole to widen it. It's important to note that caves, such as the one Ted and B were in, are pitch black. While one man worked, the other kicked back in the dark. Ted wore a helmet with a light on it, and also carried a mini-mag light and some glow sticks, just in case. Also, keep in mind this hole was about 3 feet from the ground, and the working space was difficult to negotiate. After many hours of work, they left, planning to return at another time. Within a couple of weeks, they returned, this time with B's little dog. Ted figured he might be able to put the dog through the hole to find out how far back the passage went. Prior to getting to the spot where the hole was, the dog was quite lively and exploratory. The closer they got to the hole, the more fearful the dog became, clinging to his owner and whimpering. B began working on the hole, but was soon interrupted by a weird grinding sound he heard coming from the opening. This was somewhat disturbing to him, but he continued working nonetheless. The hole began to be big enough for Ted to at least fit his head through. They were beginning to make some fairly good progress. Noticeably, at this point, the wind and rumbling sound that came from the hole had stopped. 3 weeks later, they returned to the cave with a more subdued and concerned attitude, considering the strange occurrences they had experienced during the last visit. The breeze and rumbling were back. Ted went to work on the opening, with the drill going and earplugs in. In the middle of drilling around the hole, he heard a terrible scream. Of course, it startled both men, to put it mildly. The wind and rumbling sound had stopped again. On their next trip to the cave, the wind and rumbling were back, coming from the hole. They were able to break open the hole enough for Ted to fit halfway through. On a subsequent trip, Ted was able to fit himself through the hole. He was able to negotiate the small crawl space to the passage, which subsequently led to a room. Beside it was a round rock leaning against the wall. Inside the room, Ted felt like he was being watched. To add to this uneasy feeling, he saw a strange drawing on the wall, depicting people standing below some kind of symbol. All of this time, Ted had taken pictures of his venture through the passageway to the room. It turned out that the pictures of the passage came out, but not the pictures in the room. By April, when they returned, they brought their friend Joe. Joe was thin enough to fit through the hole easily, and he was an experienced caver. Joe went into the hole first, and Ted followed. While retrieving his equipment through the hole from B, Ted hit his head on the wall and hurt himself badly. Unable to continue through the passage, Ted let Joe continue the journey. For some time, there was total silence, giving Ted an uneasy feeling. After waiting about 25 minutes, Ted went searching for Joe, but soon saw Joe coming back. When asked if he was all right, Joe responded that he was not, and it was obvious that he was shaken. He also had numerous cuts and scratches on him. Noticeably, again, the wind had stopped. At that point, Joe quickly got himself back out of the hole and to the other side, where he started packing his stuff up to leave. The rest of the trip passed in eerie silence. Joe didn't say much else. As they were dropping him off, they asked if he wanted to go back into the cave. He shook his head and ran into his house. Ted tried to call him later in the day and the next day, but only got his voicemail. Ted and Bee returned in a couple of weeks with a two-way phone and a video camera. This time, as Ted approached the cave, he reported in his blog that he really did not want to go back to the cave. In addition, little things kept going wrong on this trip. Fumbles with the rope and knots, that kind of thing. As Ted goes through the passage leading to the room, he tests the phone, which has a wire connecting it to the other phone, and talks to Bee, who is waiting outside of the hole. At the round rock near the room, Ted picks up on a very bad feeling. He nevertheless goes into the room and films it. At the end of the room, there is a passage that leads to total darkness. He goes into it and films it too. Behind him, he hears that scraping sound, louder this time and closer. He turns to get up and smashes his helmet into the ceiling, which injures his neck and back and breaks the light that is mounted on the helmet. At this point, he panics, drops to his knees, and puts the camera down. He is in total darkness. He gets his mini-mag light out, but it's dim because the batteries are old. So, he gets out his glow sticks and throws one into the room from where he came. He couldn't see anything. He tries to call Bee, but the phone is dead. He goes through the room, heading back to get out of there, and the drawing on the wall seems to glow as he passes it. As he gets to the round rock, he realizes it's been moved and that the rock was on the wire that was connecting the phones. He sets his phone down and just then sees that there's a hole where the rock had been. As he's leaving, he feels like he's being chased by what seems to him a horde of demons. As he climbs out of the cave, as he pulls the rope up to retrieve it, it snags and is pulled down into the cave. As he climbs further, he feels the rope tightening from below. Both men, in terror, quickly leave the cave. Ted does not make another entry into his blog until 3 weeks after the last incident. The reason why is that he is so shaken that he can barely do anything. During this time after the terrifying event, he is unable to eat or sleep and has taken leave from work. Within a week after the incident, he begins to hear strange things in his house. Footsteps, shuffling, creaking doors. He then begins to see things out of the corner of his eye. But when he looks, he sees nothing. He keeps the lights on and buys a gun. He starts to see strange shadows outside his windows and keeps his blinds closed. At some point, he starts to lose a lot of weight and sleeps most of the time. He can't concentrate on anything and begins to have nightmares too. During a restless night, he is back and forth from the living room to the bedroom and sees a dark figure at the end of the hall. The lights flicker. The phone rings, and Ted stumbles over a chair, and when he looks down the hall, the figure is gone. Ted leaves and drives to Overlook Point to look at the city lights. He had an urge to go there. He finds that Joe is there, looking as bad as Ted does. Both men decide they need to go back to the cave. Ted drives to Bee's house and tells him they're going back to the cave. Ted sleeps at Bee's place and finally gets some rest. Ted's last blog entry is hopeful that he will find closure by going back to the cave, and he states he's taking a gun with him this time, along with a knife, first aid, food and water, a camera, several sources of light, and a pad and pencil. He evidently wanted to be totally prepared. However, this is all he says. There is no good news about his last adventure to the cave. No news at all, though he states that he will give us news in the next entry. He never does. The ambiguity of Ted's final entry and the lack of updates sparked curiosity online, leading many to debate its authenticity and form theories. Some say Ted disrupted some evil spirits in that cave, and they went after him. Others suggest he stumbled upon a portal to another dimension and inadvertently released some of its inhabitants. However, after several years, the author revealed that the story was inspired by his own cave adventures, with a few creative liberties taken to spice things up. What do you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please support the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated.